Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're going to go back into our meeting. Our next presenter will be the Composite Medical Board. If you would come forward, introduce yourselves, and begin your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Chairman, committee members. Thank you so much for having us. I know I gave you a book here. That's why we recessed for lunch earlier, so we can be prepared to go through this. But I'm not going to hit on all of these. It's just for your information. We're going to bypass a lot of these because I know your time is valuable as well. So just want to start off with, since I took over almost 2 years ago, the Georgia Medical Board, and we have been trying to gather stats and things to help our process to show you kind of where we're at and where we've been and where we need to be. So this is part of that. This is going to have a little bit of that in there. And, hopefully it explains a lot of the questions you may have. But one of the misconceptions of the board is we just license people. That's not just what we do. We're a composite board. So we handle 11 different professions. Primary authority is licensing, but we also regulate, oversee physicians as specific allied health professionals. And we also educate. So our mantra is license, regulate, educate. So we have a multi-duty within our agency to make sure that we're hitting those key points. So, and again, that's why we changed our slogan to license, regulate, educate, to let folks know that's what we do. So slide 4, that just gives the 11 professions that we do regulate, educate, and regulate and license. So these 11 professions also have multiple disciplines within them that also take up our staff's time. So just because you see a physician, we also have different physician licenses that we have within that profession as well that we also have to go through. So it's all encompassing under physician, but we have multiple facets to it. We also promulgate rules and regulations. So the staff, along with the board and our attorneys, do review regulations and rules, which we're doing now to kind of update our rules and regulations. So that's part of our duty as well as staff. And then we give it to the board to vote on. So slide 6 has the rules that we govern. I'm not going to go through those, but that'll tell you kind of what we do as a board. Our ultimate goal, our main license, our main, clientele is the physician oversight. So we do a lot of physician oversight with licensing, disciplinary, education, things of that nature. So slide 8 will have the disciplinary responsibilities that the board has. If you want to kind of peruse that, the board may impose disciplinary actions. So what happens is the staff, that's slide 9. So what happens is the staff will compile everything. They work behind the scenes to get everything up for the board to present. So when the board gets this, it's disciplinary actions they can do, public, private reprimands, fines, probation, different things they can do to a licensee in order to get them back in compliance. Or if they don't need to be in the state of Georgia, we have means of taking their license, revoking it. So what GCMB does, next slide, is we enforce the rules of unprofessional conduct. So under unprofessional conduct, there are several items in there that the licensees have to abide by. So we enforce those rules. Again, that's a list of them: unprofessional conduct, sexual misconduct, sexual boundaries, prescription misconduct, any criminal acts. We look into those things as well. So another thing we do is we are the state medical investigative agency for these licensees. So we employ special agents and inspectors with our investigations division. We employ compliance investigators and compliance specialists that gather a lot of information to compile for the board. We also do medical peer reviews. We have over 70 medical peer reviewers on contract with us, hoping to grow that so that we get all specialties and can actually help with the number of complaints that come in. We also employ 5 medical directors, which is up from 3 when I started to 5, so that we can actually look at more complaints that come in and adjudicate them as well. Slide 13 is the key functions of our investigatory powers. So if you want to look at those, it just means that we can interview witnesses and collect evidence and do all that to gather casework and be able to give that to the board. We are recognized as a health oversight agency, so HIPAA exempt. We do get a lot of medical records in, so we get to peruse through those, and that helps with our investigations that we have and our compliance, as well as our licensing. So sometimes we have a committee that oversees that, and they check the licenses. Another thing we do is monitors and approves APRN nurse protocols. That is a lot of what our staff does. We're trying to beef up that unit to meet the demand, but since we started our new licensing database, we've doubled the amount of approvals for APRN protocols over the past several months, from on average of 300 to now 700 a month. So that should grow as we get more staffing to do that. But the processes we've had in place are improving, which you'll see with the stats coming up soon. We also approve PA delegation agreements. So we approve those mid-level agreements to make sure that they're abiding by what that position needs. That's the same with APRN protocols. So our staff does review those. That takes time. So it is very time consuming to get these done, but our staff's been knocking that out. Slide 16. We're a public protection organization. That's our main goal, is to license professionals that have the experience, have the education, and are going to take care of our folks, our families, basically, that are here. So we take that very seriously. To be that public protection organization, we also, the complaints we receive, we look at them thoroughly to make sure that we're getting to the bottom of, or getting to the truth of things, so that we're not just playing biased by either way, but we're getting to the truth of what's happening so that we can take the proper action. We also do legal oversight over the profession, which open records, administrative hearings, we do those with OSA. We do the summary suspensions, consent orders. So our legal division is made up of one person and a paralegal, and that's overwhelming to them, but they're doing it as they can. We do have some help from the AG's office when we need it, so we do have some help there. But as you see, we do a lot of different things besides licensing. So the agency has different facets, and I'll go to more of the stats in just a minute. So slide 18, the board themselves, they're separate from our team, basically. So we do the work. We try to get everything for the board. We get it to them to make the decisions that go along with the profession. So our team does a lot behind the scenes to get that done for the board. And the board's more of our subject matter experts who can tell about the professions and kind of tell us, what to do in certain occasions. But our job is to work for them to get them the information they need to make the right decisions. So that slide will give you a little bit more on that. Our board does have several committees that are made up of board members as well as ex officio members and members from the profession, so that we have visibility from all licensed groups. So we have a physician licensing committee, a PA committee, APRN committee, investigative committee, wellness committee, rules committee, and then we have I think a few others that are ad hoc committees when we need them. So we're always busy during board week and leading up to it. So that's kind of an overview of what the medical board is. Like I said, we do more than licensing. We do more than just compliance issues. So we have a lot of duties that we do that you may not have been aware of, or you may have. But these stats that I'm going to provide, I'm going to go through briefly, will kind of show you the amount of work that the board has. So compliance stats on slide 21. Since I've been there, we have had a 70.69% increase in compliance complaints coming in, and that's because of education. That's because of reorganizing the division and making sure that our workflow is good. Yes,
I-
ma'am.
I think we have a couple questions on that first section.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and stop and go this first section and see where we can get some of these answered.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's see. Chairman Stevens, you have a question?
There we go. Thank you so much. See, last year we had complaints about a delay in the APRN protocol being approved. Has we caught up on that any? Is there still a lag?
So we have, like I said, we've doubled the number of approvals that we have had in the past. So since I would say mid-July, when we started our new system, we had some snags, but we have actually doubled the amount of APRN protocols that we have have approved. So it's going in the right direction. We still have some work to do with streamlining things, and what we did was went back to the rule. So the physician delegates that responsibility. So the physician is supposed to apply and pay for the protocol and send it in. So we started off that with the system. It was going good. The physicians started recognizing what they needed to do. And then we heard from the public and from hospitals, and we now have it where APRNs can do that as well, but physician has the final say. So since we've improved that, it's been getting more applications in. And we've been approving more since that process is going. We're still tweaking it to try to get it right, but before that, it was a paper process. So they could be under desk. They could, there was no way of tracking those. Now that we have a tracking system, I believe it's going to be more than it is now. So instead of 700, I'm thinking it's going to increase to about 1,000 by the time we're done. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank you. I have a question. What is a perfusionist?
Good question. Anybody have Google?
You
We
reg-
barely have any of those. It's goes along with the medical profession as far as helping physician. Thought you were going to ask me that question. I really do not know because I've
Okay.
been so busy trying to get processes straight. I don't know what a perfusionist is either.
I have no idea. Going along, I have a couple other questions, and that had to do with the nurse practitioners, and I know you regulate cosmetic procedures, things like that. I'm seeing a number of nurse practitioners that are doing those type of services. Though you do not license them, you monitor their work. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Based on what the physician delegates to that nurse
Okay.
practitioner.
And currently, do you know how many investigations you currently have open or average at any one time?
Have that on these. Let's see. I don't know specifically for APRNs,
Okay,
but I know specifically for a certain group as far as
well,
quality of care and professional conduct. I
Okay.
don't have exactly for.
you have, I mean, I just noticed there were quite a few when you indicated you had 70+ peer reviewers. So you must have quite a few cases that are ongoing. How many would review it? Or a committee would review a complaint once you get the data and information about it? Is that how the process works?
That's right. The APRN committee will review any complaints on APRN
Okay.
to say whether it goes to the investigative committee or if it goes to the nursing board, depending on the violation.
Okay, and does it go back to the Board of Nursing, or you would make a decision on it?
It does, unless the doctor is involved, because that's who we license, and then we'll,
Okay.
we can work in tandem with the nursing board on these cases, which we have before, so we'll just get with their investigators, and our investigators will go out and work together, but I don't have the stats specifically on those.
How about just in general, how many total investigations do you think at any one time are ongoing?
With nurse practice, I would,
Not nurses, just in general, doctors,
yeah.
everybody.
so we have, I'd say about 450 to 500, but those are also ones that we're not assigning because we just don't have the manpower to do it. So they're kind of sitting there. We have 258 cases pending assignment
Okay,
as of now. And those can range from a variety of things.
okay. And in the, when they apply for a licensing or one of these, it will go to a committee first and then it would go to the full board? And how many total are on your board?
So we have 15 board members and then we have two, or one ex officio board member.
Okay.
And two are not in the medical industry
And how often does the board meet? Do they meet monthly?
every
Hmm?
month. Yes, ma'am.
Every month? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Representative Hawkins?
Thank you. How many investigators do you have?
We have 7 at the moment.
Is that enough?
No, sir.
Okay. How about the licensing issue? I still get calls all the time from friends of, their child now is trying to come back in the state and get a license. How is that moving along?
Better. I mean, we don't get as many calls, but we're still getting a lot.
Yeah.
Our calls come in, it's a 14-hour day for our folks just to answer calls.
Mhm.
So we're having to divvy that workload up between calls and emails and things. So things have gotten better.
Right.
It's still going to take some time because we just don't have the amount of personnel to be able to answer all those calls and questions and things. So
Right.
it's beginning to get better.
I've
We're
got
still
some
gonna have-
friends on the board, and the answer I get from them is that a number of these delays are actually the applicant has not completely filled everything out and got
Yes,
the records to them. It's a little more
I deal with that
complicated than I realized.
Every day I get somebody, like, you check my license, I go and look and the things weren't uploaded that we requested. And,
Right.
we've updated our website to let folks know that, hey, this is what you need.
Right.
Nobody really goes to it. But we're trying to educate folks on that. APRN protocols, they used to be 70%. They didn't have all the information, so we couldn't look at them. So we're working on the ones that had everything. Same with physicians. Each license group has their, where they don't send in the items that we need, but we're working on that through law so that at least with physicians, they can get the FCVS profile, which gives them a lot of the information we need. It's going to be within our rules so that they will have to get that. So it'll help speed that process along where we know they're getting that information. We just haven't implemented that yet
Right.
into the rule system, but
Right.
it's coming.
And a perfusionist is a professional that actually provides drug therapy
Mhm.
through IV, number of diseases, cancer, some of the other diseases, genetic diseases and all that require medication that's added slowly to the bloodstream rather than taking the pill or a big fast hit. So these folks do this without the presence of a direct presence of a physician, although it's a physician like general supervision.
Right.
And that's what they do. So.
I have that on another slide. I just didn't have it on this one.
Well, okay.
And one follow-up question was, I know last year we added a little additional funding for a safe haven. We know that physicians are under a lot of stress and they're, can have any kind of problem like everybody else does. Do you track in any way if somebody voluntarily goes? Do you make referrals? And is it successful in helping?
So we don't have that data yet because it just started with
Yeah.
Safe Haven, so we don't have that data. Roderick, our CFO, is actually working with them to try to gather that information, but it's still in the infancy stage, so we don't have that
Okay,
data. I imagine it will help because that is a burnout issue, and if there's somebody that can help them with that, it will put their mind back on the medical practice.
not just on a personal note for physicians like everybody, when you need help, you need it, but we need physicians so badly. So anything we can do to help them. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay, all right. I don't see any more questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
So
Next section.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'll try to slide through these statistics. You'll have a copy of them. This will kind of answer some of the questions about where we're at, but again, compliance cases opened. We're 70.69% increase in those. So we did get did give us some extra compliance specialists to help with this process. So we're still evaluating how that's helping. And we also have some compliance inspectors that are going to help with this number. But we're still, our complaints far exceed the number of personnel to be able to do this effectively. So we do have 160 complaints that are awaiting assignment as of, I think last month. I didn't get that total this month, but you can imagine we're still waiting to get those assigned. And then we have 473 being reviewed by medical directors and then assigned to compliance specialists. So our medical directors do review a lot of these complaints before they go back to our staff to kind of give them guidance on kind of what to look for, because that's their expertise, not ours. And then our investigation division, we do have 7 special agents. We have 258 cases pending assignment as of last month. So that's stuff just waiting in the queue to be assigned. We do have a priority assignment though. So if it does have something to do with patient care, we do put that on the front end so that we get out there and try to keep our patients safe. So we do have a triage process for that.
How does that track with previous years? Because looking, I want to go back to page 21. Unprofessional conduct in 24, it was 217. We've tripled to 732. Is there something going on?
So from what I found was some things weren't being recognized by staff to be looking at. So what I've done is initiated us to look at 100% of the complaints that come in, and then we're going to triage it based off that. And this is based off the triage after that. So there were some things we weren't looking at that we needed to be looking at. So this is what reflects on that number.
Okay, so that's the reason for the increase.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
little thorough.
Yep.
Thank you.
It wasn't that we weren't getting it in. It was just that it wasn't being triaged properly and set in place in the way it should have been. So,
Thank you.
and I have a case management background. So this is my meat and potatoes, I guess. So I can get that going.
Go right ahead.
So this may not be a total of 2,000 docs. It may be 500 docs that have 4 complaints against them. If
Could
I'm
be. I
looking
think
at right.
a majority is 1-to-1, but it could be a physician does have 3, 4, 5,
I mean, you know.
or another medical
Right.
professional has 3, 4, or 5. Yes, sir.
Yeah, especially that unprofessional conduct went up so much. He could also be in there with sexual misconduct or, you know.
It could be 3 or 4 added together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But this is just a total of what we have that we're actively looking into.
You may want to track that to individual to know the number of cases and the number of physicians in the future to have that.
Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. We'll do that. And again, I think stats are new to the medical board, so we're trying to, any suggestions are great, so we can get it right. So our next set of PowerPoints are going to be the statistics. I won't get too far into the weeds with it, but the first one's going to be the physician. So you'll see the increase from 23 to 26. We grew 7,051 since 2024. That's licensed physicians within the state that we have licensed since that time. And 2024, when I arrived, to 2026 has been a big increase. And the reason for that is operations, is getting things done in an efficient manner, making sure that we're streamlining processes. So I'm hoping this number will continue to increase as they come in, but we still have some work to do. So that'll give you some physician data renewals. We do those. It's not set by a specific date, so we get those sporadically throughout the year, every 2 years. So those numbers are also going up. Our projections are that they're going to go up at least another 30% from 2025. So all these things are going up in the right direction. IMLCC, the compact, I'm a delegate on the compact now, so I've learned a lot more about it. I think we're going to have a lot more physicians come in through the compact. I think last month we've had 700 or so come in from other states to get licensed in Georgia, to be able to practice in Georgia through the compact. And that's been increasing as well throughout the year. So the APRN protocols on page 32. That is where we get a lot of our complaints about. It's not moving fast enough. It's not getting where it needs to be. We moved from the paper process. So when we went to our new system in July, if it was paper and it wasn't approved yet, we couldn't put it in the system. So we had to have them go back in, do the electronic system to be able to get it in the system so that we can issue it. So that was a communication thing we had to do for folks to understand that in order to progress, we had to do this. But as you can see through the numbers, fiscal year 25 to 26, as of now, we're almost at the number we had last year, this year, and it's only the going into the second quarter. So I can imagine we're going to have more as we move forward, and the complaints should die down with those as we streamline that process. So we're looking to double or triple that number. PAs as well. Had more PAs practicing within the state since our processes have gotten better. More licenses will come in, and we're trying to streamline what documents PAs have to give. because that's one of the complaints is why do we have to do all this to get this? So we're working on trying to figure out what documents, what processes we need to just cut off. So we're learning from other states, as other agencies have been saying. We're learning from other states. So we've met with our southeast states to see what their processes are. So we've been kind of feeding off each other to kind of help each other out to get it to a better process. PA renewals, like I said, they're going to be 38.92%, probably more than what they have been. And these are projected, but from what it looks like, it's gonna happen. Respiratory care professionals, these are our main licenses. So physicians, PAs, respiratory care professionals, APRN protocols, but they're not licensed, they're applications. But these are our main ones that we have to work on to make sure our processes are going. But so far, everything's going good. So you can peruse those renewals. So I'll jump to slide 42. And what this is from 42 on is just our new customer service portal, because we don't have enough people to answer the phones, enough people to answer the emails, walk-ins. This kind of helped me gauge what they were getting, because I couldn't see their emails, I couldn't see their phone calls or voicemails. This is a way for me to be able to look and see what they're getting in and how they're answering. So it's been a good tool for us to use to try to get to. We're going to shift to this as our 100% customer service portal once we get through the emails and figure out this phone situation. But we're hoping we're going to switch to this as our 100% customer service portal. If you keep going there, we'll have phone calls that we get. We'll have email statistics as you keep going to slide 48. And then we'll get to slide, I want to say 52. Slide 52 sums all those up. So what I did was I took all of the emails, all the phone calls, all the next request, everything that we get in, and we averaged it out. So phone calls alone, our staff is looking at a 14.31 hour day if they answer the phone every 20 minutes with no break, no lunch. And that's out of 17 personnel that do this. Emails, the same. So next request, everything totals up to a 19.44 hour day with no breaks for each person. If we just focus on that, that's not including the licensing program. That's not including reviewing the documents that come in. That's not including the walk-ins. I mean, it's just a lot of things that our staff are doing to try to keep up. But as you see, there's no way with our current staffing, we're going to be able to keep up with this any way, shape, or form. So the rest of the slides beyond that, 53 through, it'll keep going. 53 through 63 is going to show you kind of what the average day is for each of these positions. And I'm not going to go through them, but if you want to peruse them, it'll kind of give you a day in the life of the medical board and what our staff is going through, what I go through, because I get the same emails, the same phone calls that they do. And it's just, we're trying to help folks. We're trying to get them licensed. We're trying to alleviate their cases and get it done in an expedited manner, because you don't want that weighing over your head. But it's a lot that our agency has to do to get to this. But this will give you a good overview of what our staff goes through. So we were able to get 2 inspectors. Thank y'all for that. That's a new program that we're trying to do, because if we can keep people in compliance, educate them on what to do and not to do, I think we will get less complaints and hopefully be able to alleviate some of these problems. But we have over 25,000 medical offices in the state. So it's hard for 2 inspectors to do that as well, to include our investigators who have a different job duty. So they're separate job duties, but it's just a lot for our investigative staff to do and our inspectors to do. So if you go on to page 60 or slide 66, you'll see our current organizational chart. We do have 50 personnel on that that make up the medical board. We did add 14 positions, thanks to you all for giving us that funding to be able to do that throughout time. So we have made progress with those 14 additional personnel. So we're thankful for that. And then slide 67 kind of shows our retained revenue that we keep for operations. And this is getting into the budget, so I'll just glance over it. And our retained revenue is used for a multitude of things for operations for us to make sure we're getting all the duties done, vehicles, vehicle maintenance, peer reviewers, medical directors. We pay them out of the peer review, out of the retained funds. So we have remitted on average 9,200,000, almost 9,300,000 to state treasury each year from the fees that we collect. The estimate for 26 is 11,500,000. So we're increasing the number of fee money that we bring in as well to the general fund. So slide 69, that's just going to show you, which we'll get into the budget presentation, I guess, with this, but that'll show you kind of what our outlook is and what we believe we need to get this accomplished, so that you will quit getting the phone calls and quit hearing the issues that happen, and we can hopefully get the medical board to a sustainable workplace that addresses the needs of our citizens and our applicants. So Taradric, our CFO, he's very good at numbers. He got us to where we're using some of our retained funds for some of these positions. So we're funding 6 positions with our retained funds. Don't really want to do that because it's not always, may not be the same, but we're able to use 33.22% of our retained funds to fund these positions to kind of help our workload out. So we're trying to do what we can to also help the process and use what we have. But we would really like that to come from the state funds. So slide 72 will give you our projected makeup of the Georgia Composite Medical Board. So I just kind of go over the positions that we feel will get us where we need to be. And then slide 73 will also have some of that. And then the rest of the slides, it'll kind of go over what the positions mean. It'll kind of give you a job duty and how they're going to help the board and the state get where we need to be. And then slide 82 will kind of give you the breakdown of the difference in the cost for the budget for you all to peruse. And then slide 83 just kind of gives you a breakdown of this long, big packet that you have, and kind of gives you the final of what GCMB sees and just how we see the future of our agency. So we appreciate the time. If you have any questions.
Does anyone have a question? I have a couple.
Yes, ma'am.
The most delightful thing you've said is the number of physicians that we have added, which is wonderful. To me, it's obvious you're going to need more help if we have that many more licensing processes that have to go through, and we're hoping for even more. One of the things, I know you have criminal investigators on your list. Are they law enforcement certified?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you hire them already certified and
Yes, ma'am.
licensed. Is it difficult to get doctors to serve on the board?
It's not difficult at all. I think people want to serve on the board. And we have good board members now that want to do the right thing, but I haven't found that it's difficult to get board members.
Are there other things besides staffing that you need? Technically, I think you had some increases in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
So you've got a pretty good system. You just now need the staff to keep it up.
Yes, ma'am. We were looking to see how the system would help us before we ask for anything else. But now we know what the system can do. And then we know the stats that we have, because we didn't know the stats, at least verifiable stats. Now that we have those, we kind of know we need personnel more than anything else.
Okay. Again, are there any questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
It
I'll
was
try to
very
speed
thorough.
through it. I hope it went.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Our next presenter is the Georgia Dental Board. We're going to do dental and pharmacy together.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Clint Joyner. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Pharmacy and for the Board of Dentistry. Thank you for allowing us to be here this afternoon and make our presentation. I just wanted to start off with really the basics of what is a professional licensing board and what our two functions, our basic functions are, and that's licensing and regulation. But in the last 18 months, we've really leaned into what we see now as a third major function, which is education and dialogue with the public and with our licensees. And I'll talk more about exactly how each board has engaged in that as we move forward. Moving to the Board of Dentistry first, the board licenses two types of licensees. That's dentists and dental hygiene or dental hygienists. We also license faculty, and you'll see that faculty makes up a very small portion of our total number of licensees, and that's because in Georgia you do not have to have a faculty license to teach in a Georgia school. You can do that with a dentist, with a dental license or a dental hygienist license. The reason we have that faculty license is typically for foreign trained personnel who might not qualify for an unrestricted dental license, but would qualify otherwise to teach. And so that's why that faculty license exists. Licenses are on a 2-year renewal cycle, and we have about 16,500-ish licensees. Before we go further, Jason sort of touched on this just a minute ago. There are two numbers you're going to hear from really all licensing boards when you talk about what is the administrative burden of a license versus the number of actual licensees. In Georgia, a dentist can have multiple sedation permits or IP registrations. And so the actual administrative burden on the agency is 8,047 dental licenses. But if we were to talk about something like the dental practitioner shortage, the actual number of practitioners is only 6,842. And so I just ask that you keep that in mind as we move forward. One of the questions that was asked or was submitted before this presentation was to talk about the growth of dental practitioners in Georgia. And you can see from in both dentists and dental hygienists, we have a growth of, it's about the same, roughly 93. We add roughly 93 dentists a year and about 109 dental hygienists. This positive growth is good, but the growth rates themselves are actually sort of problematic in terms of dental hygiene shortage, because one dentist can oversee multiple hygienists. And if we have roughly the same number of dental hygienists and they're growing at roughly the same rate, that has contributed to a shortage in the number of dental hygienists compared to dentists. Another of our functions is regulation. the Georgia Board of Dentistry is charged with enforcement of the Georgia Dental Practice Act. The board also is responsible for adoption, maintenance, and enforcement of the rules governing the practice of dentistry and dental hygiene. Each year, the board reviews its rules and makes amendments and adopts new rules in response to the evolving dental industry. Another major function for the board is that we receive and consider requests for individualized variances or waivers. The General Assembly recognized in the law that strict appliance of a board's rules could potentially result in draconian, it could yield draconian results. And so this is a limited power for the board to weigh the equities of a situation and grant a waiver or a variance from a board rule. And then the Board of Dentistry and then also the Board of Pharmacy are boards of limited jurisdiction, and they have limited authority over non-licensee actors.
Could you give us an example of that? An example of something where you have a rule that you're going to overrule?
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to figure out when you limited authority over non-licensee actors. So are you going to make an exception for someone with a license? I'm just kind of trying to figure out what you mean by that. For these variants, what would be an example of a variant or a waiver of a rule?
A very common waiver we get is after COVID, there was a time period where testing agencies were no longer doing live patient exams, but our rules still required a live patient exam. And by the time the board changed it, the board set an effective date of January 1, 2021. After that date, you did not need a live patient exam. We'd accept a mannequin exam. Well, we have many applicants who took an exam in December 2020 or November 2020, right before that cutoff. If we were to strictly apply the rules, they wouldn't have a qualifying exam. Almost every month we get a request for a waiver of that rule, or it's actually a variance to say, will you accept my exam, even though technically it doesn't apply, or it doesn't comply with the rule.
Okay. It doesn't change things that you have to be licensed to be it's not changing the license itself. They've still qualified. They've met all the rules and class attendance and all that kind of. Do you have anything licensing for dental assistants? We hear dental assistant. Are they a licensed entity?
Dental assistants are not licensed. They don't have a license. They don't have a registration. There are rules surrounding what is permissibly delegable to a dental assistant, but they are not controlled directly. Really, that rule about what's permissibly delegable is a rule on the dentist.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Misunderstanding a few years ago, we do have dental assisting schools that do provide credited graduations. They go to school for a year. When they're accredited school, hygienists go for 2 years. Then once they get out to do extended procedures, number of probably 4 or 5 things, they have to take a accredited course after graduation so they can do that particular procedure, always under general supervision.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And the last thing I wanted to say about the limited authority over non-licensee actors, this is an issue we run into a lot with unlicensed practice. The board has the authority to send a cease and desist order to the unlicensed practitioner, but cannot take any other disciplinary action. We can enforce that order as though it were a contempt through the Superior Court. But even though the unlicensed practice of dentistry is a felony in Georgia, we would have to refer that case to local law enforcement and the local jurisdiction The unfortunate thing we have found is that those cases tend to get very low priority by those local prosecutors. And so our hands are really tied in dealing with those in that case. And in terms of complaints and investigations, as similar to the way you just heard from the medical board, the board receives and investigates complaints. We do not have medical directors. Our complaints are actually reviewed by the board members themselves, the members of the investigative committee. And so they serve as our filter in the same way I understand the medical directors serve for the med board. And then they will determine whether a case needs to go to peer review or what the recommendation is for discipline. And then that gets taken to the full board. The board votes on it. The board does maintain its own investigative unit. We have post-certified law enforcement officers who are criminal investigators. And then we also have compliance investigators. The two types of investigators work together. The compliance investigators handling more of the administrative side of cases with sending subpoenas, getting medical records, and then the actual field work is done by our law enforcement certified criminal investigators. In a disciplinary action, the board can take private or public actions, including suspension, revocation, fine, and even what are considered non-disciplinary actions, which would be like a letter of concern. And again, the board has limited authority over unlicensed parties. This is a graph of the complaints received over time. Last year in my presentation, I indicated that we expected to be over 960 complaints for the last fiscal year. We actually wound up at 1,006. And this is a trend that is continuing. As I explained again last year, I'm not sure why it went down in 2017. We believe that to be an anomaly, but even accounting for that, we're seeing between a 12 to 15% increase year over year in the number of complaints. And as I stated earlier, the board has really leaned into lately, in the last 18 months, the idea of education and dialogue as an important focus for the board. We've continued the kind of education measures we've taken before, which is to notify licensees of new and changing laws and regulations. But we have also started, and we were lucky enough to be invited last year to be panelists, or earlier this year to be panelists at a CE event put on by the Georgia Dental Association. And we plan to continue those efforts into the coming year. And then also we have renewed our ties with and our collaboration within DCH, working with our sister agencies in the department on a variety of different projects. And then as far as dialogue, we are hosting meetings, offsite meetings around Georgia. Actually, last Friday, we were at the Dental College of Georgia to see the college and speak to students and really have the opportunity to interface with the youngest generation and the upcoming practitioners. And we have also had our chief investigator has gone to speak to groups of students and residents about You know, these are about the things that we see at the board that are common pitfalls and how they can be avoided. And just trying to kind of head those issues off at the pass. One of the questions that was submitted before the presentation was about the new dental school. Unfortunately, the board doesn't have very much involvement with that project. We were at the dental college last week, and during his remarks before the meeting, the college president said that it would be called DCG Savannah, and that it was going to be affiliated with the school and kind of a satellite campus in Savannah. Just an update on the appropriations that were made for the board last year. We wanted to start this project this summer, but we wound up with some issues with procurement and contracting, which delayed the start. And then it wound up being right before dental and dental hygiene renewal. And so we did not want to complicate renewal by working a transition during renewal. And so when renewal ends on 12/31, we look to start that early next year. Additionally, funds were appropriated for 2 new positions, as well as retention of licensing personnel. We have and we use the retention funds to increase board salaries for some of our experienced licensing analysts, and we are hiring 2 new criminal investigators. And we actually have interviews for those tomorrow. We are hiring in Macon. We are looking for positions in Macon so that we can split North and South Georgia in order to better cover the state with limited personnel. And then lastly, for the dental board, appropriations were made for law enforcement equipment and training. We've purchased sidearms and ballistic vests. We still have purchases to make in terms of ballistic vests because they have to be sized to the staff member. And so once that hiring is made, once we make those hirings, we will complete the equipment purchases there. We are also in the process of purchasing a new vehicle for the investigations unit. And the training and software funds will be used to send new investigators for medical records training and infection control training, because they'll be doing infection control inspections. That concludes my presentation for the Board of Dentistry. That's probably a good place to stop for questions.
You have a question?
Not a question, just a point of clarification. I earlier said general supervision for dental assistants. That's direct supervision, meaning they work on patients and treat patients while the dentist is in the office or at chairside. That's an important deviation from general supervision. So I want to make that clear.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anybody? I do want to add that we have come across dentist that was not licensed, and it was difficult to get prosecution. It happened to be a ERISA plan. We turned it over to the feds and they took it because it was money. Thank you.
Yeah, they're happy to get involved when there's
Yeah.
money.
Thank you.
Moving on with the Board of Pharmacy. Pharmacy has two different categories of licenses. Pharmacy actually licenses facilities as well as pharmacists. And we also have a registration, which is different from a license, not in terms of the amount of staff time it takes to process that paperwork, but a registrant does not have the same legal protections as a licensee in terms of a property interest in the license. And so it is a distinction that way, but the administrative impact is approximately the same. And similar to dentistry, when we talk about pharmacy licenses, there are sub permits that would also be included in that group. And those are the drug therapy modification permit and the nuclear pharmacist permit, which are permits that can be acquired after you get your pharmacy license. And they're kind of on top of your license. And then the board also issues pharmacist intern license. These are 5-year licenses issued to students because as part of the requirement to get a pharmacist license in Georgia, you have to complete a certain number of practical hours, and you must be licensed in order to do to work in the pharmacy. In terms of facility licenses, we have a whole lot of them. I won't read them all. But if you can think of a business that's involved in pharmacy, we probably license it. One of the questions that was submitted prior to this presentation was on loss of local pharmacies. I wasn't exactly sure what was meant by local pharmacies. I think it's retail pharmacies. And this information was actually surprising to me when I plugged it in. I did not expect that it would show a loss, but the trend, and it's a pretty strong one, shows that Georgia tends to lose about 20 retail pharmacies a year. And this is all retail pharmacies, so not just independents or chains. This is all of them.
Do you differentiate if it's a local pharmacy, meaning a non-box store? Those were what I think probably the question was referring to. We're seeing and have heard testimony that local hometown pharmacies, non-box stores, have been closing. Competitiveness, and that, I guess, is probably what we were looking for.
The board and the law don't actually define what an independent pharmacy is, and it's very difficult to say where, because you may have an independent pharmacy that is one pharmacist that owns 9 stores. Is that a chain? I mean, it's obviously not Walmart, but and for that reason, it's not something that the board has ever defined, and it isn't defined in statute. So it's not tracked by the board. The easiest way to do that, I think, would be to, and it could be done. It would take some time, but I could get the committee that information.
We kind of feel like we probably know they are the independent pharmacies. That's what we have heard. Does this include additional, for example, if a hospital opens a pharmacy where their patients can get it, or is that considered part of the hospital's pharmacy program? Or can they have both?
This does not include hospital pharmacy licenses, but several hospital pharmacies do also have a retail license.
Right.
And that retail license would be included in this.
Okay. The same thing, what about an FQHC? If they have a pharmacy in the FQHC?
If they have a retail license, this is a count specifically of retail licensees. So if they have a license that begins with PHRE, then they are included in this.
Okay, thank you.
And then on a brighter note, the pharmacists population in Georgia is quite healthy. On average, we're adding about 274 pharmacists each year. And that is, if I had to guess, it's because of the great pharmacy schools, the 4 great pharmacy schools that we have in the state. In terms of regulation, very similar to the dental board, the pharmacy board is responsible for the enforcement of the Pharmacy Practice Act, the Controlled Substances Act, and the Dangerous Drug Act. The board also receives variances and waiver requests, and again, similar to the dental board, has limited authority over non-licensee actors. Different than the dental board, while the pharmacy board does receive investigation, or does receive complaints and investigates complaints, our complaints are investigated by the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics Agency. And I won't say too much about that because Director Karnbach is here and he's going to make a presentation all about GD&A. The board has the same authority to take disciplinary actions, public and private, fine, suspension, revocation, and then also non-disciplinary actions as well. And the Board of Pharmacy has also taken huge steps in terms of community dialogue. Over the summer, the board was able to have, the board was invited to be panelists at the Georgia Pharmacy Association convention. And it was the first time we were able to get almost the entire board and the executive director and myself down to be on that panel and answer questions submitted by the attendees at the convention. And then we also had an opportunity after that panel to meet and just kind of circulate and talk to our licensees, and a different group of licensees than would normally come to a board meeting. And then a month later, we were able to do the same thing with the Georgia Society of Healthcare Pharmacists. And one story I really love telling from that particular convention is a pharmacist came up to us after the panel was over, and she said, well, you know, we've got this problem at my hospital. I didn't want to ask you the question in public, but it has to do with IV fluid storage. And from that question, the very next board meeting, we were able to discuss that issue and get a policy set up to address that issue. And that, which was not even an issue that was on our radar, but because of that dialogue, we were able to address a problem we didn't previously know existed. And it was a direct benefit of engaging with our licensees. The board has also partnered with NABP to set up a better, more regular newsletter. And so we're really engaging with our licensees more and better than we ever have before. In the same appropriations update, we have hired, this is the licensing software. Similar situation to that for the dental board. We expect deployment to begin in early 2016. Okay. As far as the personnel appropriations that were made, we have hired a new licensing analyst, and our posting for licensing supervisor is in its second week, and we expect that will close soon and we can move to interviews for that position. And then the retention funds were used to increase salaries of some of our licensing analysts. The last thing I want to close on is the complex structure of the staff for the board. So this is actually for both boards. The boards are separate boards, separate jurisdictions, but they share one staff. And it's listed here, but the easier way to see it is with our organizational chart, which is just a little bit smaller than med boards. But you can see that those positions which are funded by dentistry are in green, and those funded by pharmacy are in blue, and it is a true mix in all parts of the organization. And so we're sort of a unicorn and among state licensing boards, because we're set up this way. I don't know of any others that are, but it's working for us.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough. Are there any additional questions? Yes. Go right ahead, Chairman Stevens.
Thank you. Just to be clear, thank you again for coming today. You regulate and license pharmacies in Georgia and Georgia only for licensed Georgia pharmacies. For example, and Dennis may be able to speak to this as well. I recall a few years ago when the New England compounding pharmacy was sending tainted meningococcal stuff into our hospitals, actually killing folks. You didn't have any authority as a board to go out and regulate that. Isn't that true?
That's correct. We could discipline their non-resident or wholesaler license, whichever they had. But other than that, we didn't have the authority to go and shut them down because they were in another state. One thing the board is looking at is requiring those pharmacies that are located out of the state to provide proof that they have either an inspection that's been approved by the board. So for instance, if you had a pharmacy that was shipping into Georgia from Alabama, if we had approved an Alabama state inspection, then they could show evidence of the Alabama state inspection. Otherwise, they would have to show an NABP inspection, which is incredibly thorough. And because currently they don't have to show any kind of inspection at all. And it actually puts Georgia compounding pharmacies at a disadvantage because we hold them to a very high standard, and other states we know do not hold their compounding pharmacies to the same standard.
Thank you for the job you do.
Do we
Thank
need
you.
legislation for that?
We can't because it's another state.
All right, thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next presenter will be the Drugs and Narcotic Agency. Thank you. If you'll introduce yourself and what y'all do.
Good morning. Michael Karnbach. I'm the director of the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics Agency. So our agency is a little bit different. As Mr. Joyner alluded to, we pick up sort of where they leave off, right? The Board of Pharmacy licenses pharmacists, and we do the investigations, the inspections, and the education for the profession. Our agency is a little bit different. We are pharmacists and we are law enforcement and we regulate the profession. I do want to kind of point out that we take that personal, right? This is our profession. We're parents and we're, patients, and all, the medications that we oversee, the facilities that we oversee, they go to our family as well. So as healthcare professionals, we take it serious, and as patients ourselves, we also take it serious. So as an agency, we're a small agency. I think we have 18 people total from the director to the bottom. You can see our breakdown. We have a director, the deputy director. We have 2 supervisors in the field that actively have territories, which we'll show in just a second. Each of those supervisors oversee 5 special agents each. That's broken down into regions. We have 1 manager in the office, and we have 3 office staff that work underneath that manager. So that layer of middle management under the deputy director that you see there was something we created for the first time last year. And that's gone very well. We're very pleased with that. Those individuals are a little overworked, and we'll talk about that in the coming months, but it's going very well. We're seeing good productivity with that. We're seeing good turnaround. I think it's a good investment, and it was a good decision all the way around. So they're doing a fantastic job. So we see here in the state, one of the other things that we do different, I think, is that we position our people in the field. So our agents that work in the field live in their area. So each color section on the territory side represents a person's area of responsibility. So in that area, we have that person who is both a pharmacist and a law enforcement officer, that they do the inspections and the investigation. So we don't have inspectors and investigators. We put it all into one. So I think for us, that works out well. So when that person is in the pharmacy, they're doing both the inspection and the investigation. The area on the other side, that's our supervisor region. It looks disproportionate geographically, but it is proportionate by density of pharmacies. As we know, South Georgia has less pharmacies than the metro Atlanta area. And so if we kind of broke it down by that, we would see that. So there are about the same number of pharmacies in each of those sections, even though the geography difference is quite significant. A few different things. We are obviously administratively attached to DCH, which we appreciate our relationship with them. The services that we utilize come from 3 different areas primarily. Department of Community Health provides procurement services for us, budget management, and human resources. So anytime we want to buy something, we go through the DCH channels. Anytime we need a vehicle, we'll go through procurement and DOAS. If we need to hire, fire, we need administrative issues from HR, we use DCH for all of those functions. And those functions work well. Our relationship with DCH is good, not that the others are not. So Attorney General's office provides our legal services. We don't have an attorney in-house. Again, that's a need, I think, for in the future to discuss. But for right now, we utilize all of our legal services from the AG's office. The Board of Pharmacy obviously has an attorney. Mr. Joyner's an attorney, so we pick his brain a good bit. And because our investigations and our inspections cross over with the board, we're able to get a little bit of benefit from their legal services sometimes as well too. So we appreciate his efforts. And then anything technology related, we use GTA for directly. We don't use DCH for anything IT. We go straight to GTA. So our equipment, our tablets, our anything electronic, all of our leasing stuff, everything just goes straight through GTA. And again, have a good working relationship with them. Our appropriations breakdown is pretty simple. Being a small agency, we keep it short and sweet. We're heavy on the personnel side for budget, as we can see, and we run pretty lean on everything else. The biggest other portions, which are not large, but contracts, which is really the only contract we have in place, is for our software. That's our inspection and investigation management systems that we use in the field. And then after that would be real estate, how much rent we pay. We've looked around to try to save money to move somewhere, but the cost of moving is high and there's really nowhere on Capitol Hill to go. So maybe in the future we can shave off some areas there and save a couple of tax dollars. But for right now, we are doing the best we can with that. And our facilities are fine anyway, so we're not complaining. One of the questions that came up before the meeting was, how does the big beautiful bill impact us? Knock on wood, it doesn't really impact us. Our agency doesn't rely on federal funds, being a state agency. We, enforce state law. The only federal funds we get, it's not really funds, but the only federal money we get is asset forfeiture. So if we work a large case with the federal government, so the FDA primarily, or the DEA, if we work those and they seize product, we can DAG for that and claim some of that money. Those are rare. We haven't had one of those in a long time, but we do have those funds. But as far as I know, the big beautiful bill doesn't impact asset forfeiture money at all. Other than that, there's no impact. A few different things that we don't normally talk about, I guess, in our standard meeting. So I thought I'd bring a few things up, right? Our agency was founded in 1908. We are one of the older agencies in the state. We've been around for a long time. We were created in 1908 if you think about kind of what was going on at the time, right? We had the pharmaceutical industry was really kind of non-existent. If you wanted a prescription drug, you went down to the local druggist and they made it for you. They compounded. There definitely was no FDA in place. There was no regulation. There were no laws and rules that protect the public. And so about the same time, the state of Georgia and the federal government created entities like the FDA and our agency on the state level. So our entire purpose is to ensure patients are protected by enforcing the laws and rules of the state. So the Board of Pharmacy exists for that, and then we exist to enforce those. So yes, we're an old agency, but we were created a long time ago for this same purpose. It's still very effective today. I feel like we're still highly utilized, and we'll show some of that with a little bit of numbers here. Like I talked about before, our agents are licensed pharmacists and post-certified peace officers. I bring this up for a couple of different reasons. One, retention is not an issue with our agency. Our folks stay. They're pharmacists. You have to be a little bit crazy to take a pay cut to go from the private sector to come to work for the state of Georgia, but it's something that they do because they love it. They're passionate about it. And in my 20 years of being with the agency, 20 plus years of being with the agency, I can recall 2 people who left that did not retire. So if that says anything, that speaks to the quality of the agency. It speaks to the quality of the Board of Pharmacy, to the state of Georgia. I think that all those things in place, I think we have a great agency and we produce good product as a result of that. Good people make good product. The agency does not typically investigate illicit violations unless it involves a registrant. So the name drugs and narcotics can be a little misleading, right? It sounds a little bit like the Drug Enforcement Administration. We are not the DEA, right? We're a state agency. If you kind of combine the DEA and the FDA, I guess you would kind of get us on a state level. So the DEA only enforces controlled substances. The FDA does not enforce controlled substances. We do both. So when we go into that pharmacy, yes, we're looking at their controlled substances, but in our state, controlled substance issues are about this much of the problem, and everything else is typically, a non-controlled substance issue. Is the prescription being accurately filled? We start to get into a patient care issue, and those are the things that we enforce, all of them, but those are the things we find the most are patient care issues, and those are honestly rare. Our pharmacies do a fantastic job. Mr. Joyner alluded a little bit to this is a little bit of a breakdown different, but this will make a difference in just a second. As you can see, we have different facility types, and these aren't all of them, but these are most of them. These kind of represent the heaviest numbers. And this is important because I believe that most of our issues are in state, right? But anybody can complain about a pharmacy that's out of state. We license non-resident pharmacies. So a mail order pharmacy in Arizona shipping into Georgia, they misfill a prescription or something happens with that. God forbid there's a patient injury or there's just a patient complaint. That complaint goes to the Board of Pharmacy, that comes to us, and we still investigate it. We don't have the funds or the people to send to Arizona, but we still investigate that the same way. Those licensed entities are required to provide the records to us. We investigate that, we write it up the same, we present it to the board, and it moves through the same investigative process. So the question that came up earlier about non-resident pharmacies, to kind of touch on that, in that situation, I think it was 2012 NECC issue happened. We weren't licensing non-resident pharmacies at that time, so entities could ship into Georgia with no oversight. Now they're at least licensed by the board. What can be enforced and what can't, that's a different issue with the laws and all that. But at least now the board, if something is a significant issue, the board can take away that license and prohibit that entity from shipping into Georgia. So we still work those investigations. It doesn't matter if it's a wholesaler that's located in another state, a mail order pharmacy. If they're shipping drugs into our state by any means, the Board of Pharmacy has the authority to license and to regulate and enforce that. And so those are also things that we do. Mr. Jordan alluded to the license types. For us, this is a big deal. We see that the technicians are much heavier, about twice as many technicians as there are pharmacists. From a licensing side, that's one thing. From an investigation side, that's another. A lot of our investigations involve technicians. A lot involve pharmacists as well, but the heavy amount is technicians. Technicians weren't previously registered by the state in any way until about 2009, I think it was. And then we saw a significant increase on investigations once we started licensing those or registering those, excuse me. This is a little bit of a representation of the density of pharmacies, and this is also a representation of where our investigations are. The areas that are highlighted the most here are where the most licenses are. So our investigations obviously focus in those general areas. It kind of touches back to the other slide about the states and how we break things down. You can see that here on the side, these are all the different license types that we have. Everything there is inspected by us, investigated by us. It's a heavy workload. The services that we provide the state, just as the medical board alluded to, they kind of have a trifecta of an approach. We also have that. Ours are inspections, investigations, and education. Again, that's been the same since 1908, and I don't think that'll ever change. Our inspections, I think the one thing to take away with our agency is with inspections, because we are so heavy on them and we focus on those inspections and we drive that home and we drive that education home, and we're talking peer to peer with our pharmacists and teaching them the right way to do it. We're not their attorneys and you know, or their teachers per se, but when we have those conversations with them, I feel like we have the respect to have a frank conversation with them and say, look, you can't do it this way. You got to do it this way. And so sometimes through just a verbal education rather than enforcement, we're able to accomplish a lot of things. I think we see that that's why we don't have as many investigations as some of the other boards do, because we have a very, very heavy presence of inspections. And I think that's overall, that's the best approach. I think it shows, the math shows, and we'll see it in just a second. But our inspections, that the board licenses, every facility before they get a license, they're inspected by us. So we're boots on the ground. There are no virtual inspections. There are no anything except us walking into the facility, looking at the facility, peeling it apart, looking at the ceiling tiles to make sure somebody can't climb over. We're checking if they're compounding, and we'll talk about that. Are they doing all that correctly? So all of those things before the facility even gets going, and then we bring that back to the board and we say, this facility is good to go. They license them, and then they go into a rotation cycle and we inspect after that. So those inspections, very much like a health department inspects the the restaurants we eat at. It's that same concept of repeated inspections. And so I think that's why we see a positive amount of compliance. Medical clinics that dispense prescription medications, the board doesn't license those. But if they dispense if a doctor dispenses drugs or they compound drugs, then they fall under our jurisdiction for inspections, and the investigations are worked in conjunction with the medical board. We go in with them and we operate that together. Investigations, criminal investigations involving prescription medication. Anywhere there's a prescription medication in the state, we have the authority to move in certain areas. We just had a complaint about a out-of-date drug being sold at a gas station. The board doesn't license gas stations. There was no pharmacy there, but the complaint came through. It was a legitimate complaint. We went out, we addressed it, we educated the people, we made sure there was nothing else out there. Our job is to make sure that patients are getting the right medication safely. That's what we did. Administrative investigation. So it could be a criminal investigation by our agency. It could be an administrative investigations. A lot of times those overlap, right? If a pharmacist is stealing drugs from the pharmacy and using it for they're impaired, or a technician is, obviously that's a criminal case, and obviously it's an administrative case. So those cases overlap, those investigations overlap. That's why it's beneficial for our folks to be both pharmacists and law enforcement. I think they work well together. And then education, public, law enforcement, and healthcare professionals. We educate anybody that we can. Most of our education comes to healthcare professionals through our inspections. Touch on inspections for a second. Inspections we conduct every year or every other year, depending on the facility type. We'd like to get into every facility every year if possible. We just don't have the manpower for that right now, but we'll see some of the stuff here in just a second. The most common type of inspection is a retail pharmacy. Obviously, that's the most type of common permit in the state, so that's obviously going to be the most common type of inspections. People ask, how long does an inspection take? Inspection can take an hour. Inspection could take 8 hours. It could take 2 days, 3 days. Depends on how bad the facility is, right? Depends on how many follow-up inspections are required. An inspection at a small pharmacy is different than going to a gigantic hospital and a campus. That might take 3, 4, 5 people to go do that one inspection in one day. So it can vary. Complex inspections. Compounding pharmacies are a very complex inspection. We send our people for training either to South Carolina or previously to New Jersey. It doesn't matter if you're a pharmacist already or not. When you get hired on with us, you go to a school for training just on compounding. So we make sure that our people know how to inspect for compounding. Compounding can be sterile compounding, non-sterile compounding, hazardous. I think the GLP-1 things came up, the conversation came up earlier today about how people are getting it. A lot of times those are compounded products, right? Sometimes they're manufactured products, sometimes they're compounded. So those facilities that compound that product, those are regulated by us as well. This is a disgusting picture, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? This was a picture that was taken inside a pharmacy. It was inside a retail pharmacy. It was under the sink where they wash their hands and they wash out their utensils for compounding or whatever it might be. This is why we do what we do. This is a recent picture. So if you don't remember anything, remember this disgusting picture, and I apologize for it, but I always want people to remember that we're not just looking at controlled substances. That's not the #1 issue in our state. Still looking at inspections, there are about 3,800 facilities in Georgia. Like I said, we inspect about 65% of them in the last 12 months, about 95% in the last 24 months. Like I said before, retail pharmacies represent the largest number in the last 5 months. These are the number of inspections that we've done for these permit types. This isn't all the inspections, but these are the permit types. You can see that retail pharmacy represents that largest number. Retail pharmacy, the question kind of came up about what is a retail pharmacy. A retail pharmacy can be just about any business model, right? It can be your mom and pop. It can be a chain. They could be a compounder. They could be sterile compounding, non-sterile compounding. They could be vaccinating. They could be long-term care. A retail pharmacy is sort of a catch-all permit for most of the professions in pharmacy. It's the most prevalent permit type in our state, and there are so many different plug-in models, I guess, that you could pick. So that's why it represents the largest number here. Shifting to investigations, consumer and patient complaints are referred to GD&A for an investigation, right? The Board of Pharmacy receives that complaint, or sometimes they'll call us directly, or sometimes the pharmacist will tell us, hey, this is going on over here, whatever it is. They come to us, we investigate it. Our most common types of complaints are prescription errors. So you go to the pharmacy and you get the wrong thing, or you get somebody else's thing, or you don't think it's working correctly. It's a compound and something's gone wrong. God forbid there's an injury or a death, we handle those as well. Everything that's associated with those errors, that goes to the board. The board says GD&A, investigate, and we go out and we do our thing. And then we bring that back to the board and they look at the facts and they decide if an action should be taken or not. Once we present it back to the board, that's kind of it for us, right? It's kind of like presenting it in court. We're done. We've done our part. It's their it's their case, and that's the end of it for us, unless they ask us to do something else. We don't investigate customer service. That's, the pharmacist was rude. My copay was too high. I didn't like the way he looked at me or she looked at me. Sorry, that's not against the law or rule. It's just a bad business model. That's not for us to investigate. And 98, 99% of those are filtered out by the board office before they come to us. But every so often we do get that. Somebody asked about case backlog. Do we have a case backlog? We don't. And again, we average about 90 days or less. It's usually less to close our investigations or to complete our investigations. So we receive a complaint. We're in the pharmacy. We've taken an action in the first 30 days on everything that we get, and we move forward from there. We don't let our cases run stagnant, and we don't have the case volume or the complaint volume that some of the others do. So I don't want to compare myself to them. But for our agency and what we have, we think this is a good number. I want it lower and lower, but the board only meets once a month, so it's hard to cut numbers when you only have a meeting once a month. So sometimes that gets in the way, but we'll continue to strive to make even that number better. Most common sources of investigations, the public, healthcare professionals, inspection deficiencies. When we're doing those inspections, if we find something wrong, we have the authority to make a case on it. If we've told an individual, hey, this needs to be fixed, and we have multiple issues, and they fix it and it's an issue, they fix it and it's an issue multiple times, we take that to the board and we say, here you go, board. We think this is a problem, and the board will say, yes, it is, or no, it's not. So we have the ability for that. Law enforcement can refer complaints to us as well. And then loss prevention within the companies. They say, hey, we caught somebody stealing, whatever it is. And they've got great systems in place for some of the big box chains, fantastic things in the hospitals. So they do a great job of catching and policing their own as well. Right now, we have 173 open investigations, and these are our source types. So this is from just a couple of days ago when I put this together. Citizens, we see represent, well, let's see, the Board of Pharmacy is the dark green. So the most of our complaints right now that we have are from the Board of Pharmacy. Then we see a small number from inspection deficiencies and notifications of loss. So if a pharmacy's lost medication, anything's been stolen, whatever it is, they have to report that to us. And then referrals can come from anywhere, another agency or what have you. With our investigations, this is just an overview of the process. The middle section is what we do. We sort of talked about this already, but I think it's important to remember that investigation and inspections are conducted by us. The criminal case is handled through the courts, and the administrative case is handled through the board. So if we're going to arrest a pharmacist or a technician or whoever else it is, we'll work that case to one side and we'll present the case to the board at the same time for whatever it is. We take arrest warrants, we take search warrants, all the things that law enforcement does, we do that, but we focus on prescription drugs only. Some of the drugs that are involved, these are all of for the last 5 months, these are all the drugs that we've had in our investigations. You can see at the bottom, they're dangerous drugs, and that's the legal name for non-controlled substances. So you see the largest part of what we deal with is non-controlled substances. And all of these investigations it could be any type of investigation. It could be a prescription error. It could be a drug theft. It could be an impairment. It doesn't really matter. All of these are kind of represented here. So you see dangerous drugs or non-controlled substances. Our investigations that don't involve drugs at all, which may sound weird for a pharmacy case, but those would be the second category. And that might be it could be a host of different things, really. But as you move through, we see compounding, we see benzodiazepines, and here we see opiates, and we try to break those down individually. Education. This is, like I said before, our biggest area. I think this is what drives home an inspection. I think an inspection by itself is just a deficiency marker. I think an investigation by itself is just working. I think education has to be combined with all of those things. So we inspect. Every inspection is an opportunity for an education, whether it be law enforcement, pharmacy school, guest lectures for various groups, or what have you. That is all I have, subject to your questions.
Representative, go right ahead.
Thank you, Michael, for all those years of work and shutting down some of these so-called pain clinics that were moneymakers. Y'all have done a phenomenal job in helping our public. Years ago, drugs and narcotics was involved in training the drug dogs. Do you still do that?
We license the canine handlers, yes, sir. And we do license them, absolutely. So
Big stuff.
they get a researcher permit with the state, the same as the universities do in their testing for drugs or whatever it might be, trying to create a drug. That same researcher license is what the canine handlers get to train their canines. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Are you involved when they have, I guess they're fake pills? I've heard of several where they have fake Percocets, maybe laced with fentanyl. Would you be involved in that, even if they're bought on the street? That's more narcotics, police enforcement.
Yes, ma'am. It would be more the locals for
Okay.
that GBI or DEA, or we have some authority for the illicit side, but only unless that gets into the prescription market. We do see counterfeit drugs that move through that side of it, but probably not like what you were just referencing, but we do see counterfeit drugs that move
But
into.
you do monitor for those that do come through pharmacies if there are some
Yes,
counterfeit.
we license and inspect, or we inspect the wholesalers who ship the drugs to the pharmacies, even the manufacturers that create the drugs. So everybody in that entire chain before it gets to the patient, we're involved in that all the way through. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. It's been a very thorough report. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it. Okay, we have one more presentation. If we could have our folks come up from the Georgia Trauma Center.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Taylor, members of the committee. Apologize in advance.
Thank you for your patience and being with us today. Thank you.
I am used to this anchor seat where I bring up the rear. So I promise you all, I always put more information in your packet than you need. I will hit on the high notes. Let me just find my presentation here. Oh, and I'm not a PC girl, so come on, Gabby, help me out here. And while Gabby's getting our presentation up, oh, there we go. Where are you? The top one. I know my staff is going to kill me because I made them come here with me today because they never get to see this process. And there's only 5 of us for this sort of monumental task. So to my right here is, you're lucky because Representative Hawkins left, so he doesn't bite, but still. Is Katie Vaughn, and she's our finance operations officer. And then over here is Gina Solomon. She is our nurse director over our quality program. And then Gabby Say is our operations manager, and she kind of is the glue that holds everything together. And then Crystal Shellnut is our manager for trauma system development. So very proud to have all of them with us here today. So, okay, let me see if I can work this now. So thank you again for allowing us to be here. And we really appreciate the questions that you sent in advance, because that really helps us kind of frame our message. And I love this dialogue that we have back and forth. We're probably one of your newer agencies other than healthcare workforce, because we've only been around since '07, but I'll frame my talking points around some of those questions that y'all gave us. So just to remind you, and for some of the committee members that might be a little bit newer at this, you know, trauma is a major public health issue, and it's a leading cause of death in younger folks. Now, we are seeing a trend towards elderly people being injured, and particularly critically injured in falls has now become our #1 mechanism. I used to stand up here and say motor vehicle crashes, but that's not true any longer. And uncontrolled bleeding is the #1 cause of trauma mortality. So that's why we have such a robust Stop the Bleed program and bleeding hemorrhage control. The kits that you all, back I think in 2018, gave us extra money to be able to, the commission still allocates money for bleeding control kits for schools, and Crystal works through our regional program coordinators to make sure that the kits in public areas that need bleeding control kits have them. So we're really proud of that program. So just a little bit about us, how we started. And again, this is all in your packet. I don't want to, many of you know this already, but back in the study committee that was done that led to the formation of the commission, our death rate was so much worse than national average, and there was a lot of uncompensated care being delivered. These issues were magnified in the rural areas. We also, right after the commission was formed, we had an ACS, American College of Surgeons, trauma system review in '09, and these are some of the issues were the same. But I have to say, I was in the room during that time, and I remember, many of you remember Pat O'Neill, and he described our trauma system at the time as islands of excellence in a sea of chaos, because we had these centers, only 13 of them at the time, struggling to try to do the best that they could, but there was just so little interconnectivity between them. So a lot of challenges at that time. The commission, again, was established in '07 by Senate Bill 60, and our primary functions are really to serve as the accountability mechanism across the entire trauma system of Georgia. We oversee system development. Crystal is doing an amazing job with that. Quality outcomes, which Gina does, and the distribution of trauma funding, which Katie is really kind of oversees all the items with procurement. We are administratively attached to DPH, and there are great partners in procurement and HR. They help us primarily with those 2 major functions. And then, of course, Gabby, she processes a lot of those invoices and things. So our system's been around for 44 years. Our two major sources of funding are the super speeder bill, and that brings in about 24 million. And the fireworks, as you know, is kind of a newer funding mechanism that we have. And that's been a little slower to climb. That's at about 1.4 million. Just as a reminder, all of the fireworks go into the trust fund, the super speeder, the fines go into the trust fund, the reinstatement fees go to the treasury. So every year there's sort of a little bit of a true up that occurs with that. And then you can see our budget. I just wanted to give you an idea of how this shakes out. Again, as most people said, our operations budget, 1.5 million, that does include a small amount of reserves just in case projects come up that the commission may want to fund, or items that we, the stakeholders, we have a large advisory structure that's about 11 committees with over 250 stakeholders. Everybody. So Gabby's the one that keeps track of all those meetings. So we have probably about 6 to 10 meetings a month of all these stakeholders. And so when you boil it down, our operations budget is probably like 3% of our total operating budget. So we run really slim. And you can see the biggest area of our budget is the trauma centers. And a lot of people always say, well, what in your packets, you have our annual report, which actually has the breakdown of what each trauma center gets. And it's in 3 main buckets. It's their registry, it is their readiness funding, and for level 1s and 2s, it's uncompensated care. We don't have uncompensated care for 3s and 4s yet. We hope to get there someday because they're bearing a burden of uncompensated care just like our 1s and 2s. And then Morgan asked me about just some, what are some common, misconceptions about the commission? And I would say first and foremost, Dr. Ashley, our chair, always says, we're not a bank. We don't just give you money. You have to, there's, the trauma centers you'll see in a second have performance metrics, but everyone that we contract with has at least a 5% performance-based pay portion of contracts. We are big on the performance and accountability piece. And because they bear the biggest burden of risk, the trauma centers, and they also get the biggest portion of money, I just wanted you to see what the breakdown was here. So the level 1s and 2s, 80% of their money is at risk for performance-based pay. For the 3s and 4s, it's a little bit less because they get a much smaller slice of the pie, and then burn centers as well. So 60% for 3s, 17% for level 4s. And then I know you can't read this, but you might be able to see it on your slide. It's just kind of a breakout of what the performance-based pay metrics looks like for the hospitals. And on the very bottom right, on the 3rd column, down in the red, the last 2 items, you'll see time to first dose for VTE prophylaxis for patients with a specific length of stay. And you'll also see time to surgical repair in geriatric patients. So now, performance-based pay is going to outcomes. So we want to see not just that you're coming to meetings, that you're doing system engagement. And we've already, through the help of Gina and her database, we've identified what the average times for both of these metrics are. So folks know where they are already. We're not just, and they actually wanted these outcome metrics because it helps them get where they need to be with their metrics. And these are national benchmark metrics. So this isn't something that George is just making up. This is something they have to show that they're doing for their national verification. So they have a scorecard that they have to turn in for us. And we flipped this a little bit just to make it easier for them because we didn't, the old way that PBP used to be done is we would actually take money away from you at the end of the year. And that causes a lot of consternation, as you could all imagine. So we do this prospectively. So whatever their current PBP scorecard result is, that affects their future payments. So they can plan a little bit better. And they know if they're not on target for one of the performance-based pay metrics. And then they have to report to us how they're using their funds. And then we in turn put that on your annual report so that we can show. We have a really good idea because we've done about 4 papers now on trauma readiness and how, what the costs are. So we kind of know how they're using, but we want to see kind of what the burden is and what the majority of the funds are going for. So then the second myth that I wanted to, and many of you have heard this before too, is that not every hospital is a trauma center. So just because there's a hospital in your county or your community, it doesn't mean it's a trauma center. And depending on what their level of resources, they might not be very well resourced to take care of trauma patients. And we liken a trauma center and a trauma team to that NASCAR team where everybody kind of knows what they're doing. It's a little bit controlled chaos, but probably the bigger thing about a trauma center that is versus a hospital that is not a trauma center is all the wraparound services. We estimated that like 0.5 or 5% of the stay is actually in the ER. So the rest of the hospital stay is in the hospital. So people think trauma, they think ER, but it's all that specialty care that happens after the ER visit that really the trauma center that's where their expertise is. And then I wanted to give you a little primer on designation levels because that question comes up quite a bit. think of it like level 1s and 2s are clinically the same services. The main difference is that level 1s are the academic research engines. So they're the ones kind of driving research and innovations in patient care. Whereas level 2s do all the same thing clinically, they just might not have that research piece. Level 3s, you still have a trauma surgeon who's required to respond, and you still have orthopedic surgery, but you're not required to have all the surgical subspecialties. So if you need that care, you're going to have to be transferred to a higher level care. And then our level 4 centers, they don't have surgical capability. That's really run by an emergency medicine physician. And those patients, if they require specialty care, will have to be transferred. And then I think one of the questions was around how are we doing in terms of system development, costs? And so I'll just show you from 2007 to 2025. We have more than doubled the number of trauma centers, thankfully, and we've improved trauma care access by 30%. You'll see another slide on that in a moment. But this map just shows you the concentric rings are about an hour. That's what we consider access, is about an hour within a trauma center. So we're greatly improving that. The lighter shaded areas are the access is really to a level 4 center. So while having level 4s improves our access, it's not the same as having access to surgical care, because as I mentioned, level 4s do not have a surgical capability. And you can see the trauma system growth by year. I just thought this was interesting for you to look at. The net numbers are on the bottom, so you can see the most growth was in the beginning, but sometimes we have centers that drop out of the system too, mostly at the level 4 center level, other than what we had happen in Atlanta a few years ago that I think everybody remembers, where we did lose one of our level 1 centers. But it's a constant battle to kind of keep up with the losses. And then this is just where we are now, because everybody always asks me this, so I want to make sure I had it on a slide so I didn't have to remember all the numbers, because they do change quite a bit. We are growing. Probably our biggest growth is going to be in the level 4 trauma center area. And this is what I alluded to before, where we increased our access by 30%. So you can see prior to trauma commission, this is just for severely injured patients. This is looking at the discharge data set for all comers, all patients in all hospitals in Georgia. So from 2003 to 2020, we went from what was pretty abysmal 64% to now 93%. So pretty good, and probably not likely to move that needle so much, given that the the centers that are likely to come on board will be in more of the rural areas with lower volumes. And this has become really the heart and soul of the commission, is our Georgia Quality Improvement Program, which I mentioned Gina heads up. We've been in existence since 2012 and initially included just our level 1 and 2 centers. Now it's inclusive of everybody. We have all the 3s and 4s present, the burn centers, the pediatric centers, and we have work groups. We meet face-to-face twice a year. We actually do peer review. I heard my colleagues talk about peer review. We do medical peer review. We have an attorney just for peer review to make sure that the centers feel comfortable bringing their difficult cases forward. And I think it's been a great forum, and everybody's been really willing to talk about some of their opportunities for improvement. And I'll just show you, this is our national benchmarking report. So this report comes from the American College of Surgeons. Each level 1, level 2, and level 3 gets their own facility report, how they perform against the national average. This is what we call our collaborative report. This is all level 1 and level 2 trauma centers in Georgia aggregated together, compared to the nation. And this is our performance for risk-adjusted major hospital events, including mortality. And as you can see, in 2015, we were horrible. It looked terrible. And then over time, and we actually did a paper on this that was in the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery, just published this year. We think that the biggest correlation with this is requiring the level 1s and level 2s to become ACS verified, American College of Surgeons verified, which they wanted, and they requested the Trauma Commission to make that requirement. But just the rigor of that review every 3 years is what really it's the cog that kind of keeps the wheel spinning. And then this is the same thing, risk-adjusted major hospital events excluding mortality. So this is, if you want to think about it, the other one included mortality. So if the patients died early, they wouldn't be impacted because it included death as if it were a complication, but this is excluding mortality. So this is just patients who get, who have a hospital-acquired condition. And again, all across all cohorts, pretty abysmal in 2015 and looking really improved in, this is actually 2025 data for you. We put the most recent one in here, but definitely improvement. This report is 70 pages of outcomes and process measures. If any of you are interested, I would be happy to sit down with you and share with you some. It's incredible wealth of information of how your center is performing and how Georgia is performing. And then I'll just bring it home with just some of our, we talked about how horrible our mortality rate was, and we were 16% worse than the national average. And the most recent data, we are 6% better than the national average. So a huge improvement there. And then I think you all remember Dr. Ashley presented on this, and kind of, because you guys wear these hats of having to make decisions about where funding goes, we look at mortality from an economic perspective. What does that mean when we take people out of their ability to work and generate money and be part of the economic powerhouse? If you look at the lives that we saved in 2020, that was about a $5.4 billion lifetime personal income preserved from those. I think it was 1,800 lives that we estimated. And then about 636 million in lifetime tax revenue preserved. And then on the cost piece, these are kind of old numbers now, but you remember we have readiness cost data for level 1 all the way through level 4. We're the only state that has level 3 and level 4 cost data, and we published that as well a couple years ago, 2020. But our level 1 was about 10 million, level 2 was about 5 million, level 3 was 1.7 million, and 4s were 81. I can tell you that the 4s, I don't think we got really good cost data from them. We're going to repeat that. We're in the middle right now of doing crunching the data from our level 1 and level 2 readiness costs. So you'll have that. We'll have that hopefully for this session, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I can't help it because I've looked at the raw data already, and it's big. It's more than double what the original numbers were. Now we're going to try to adjust that for inflation and see kind of how that fits. So we'll have data, but it's aligning closer. Our colleagues in Tennessee just did a readiness cost survey. It's probably a little bit more than what they got, but we'll see when we have the final numbers in. So. And then just about some of the things that kind of keep us awake at night. I don't know if any of you recognize this. This hospital's about 50 miles from where I live in Sparta. This is the old Hancock Memorial Hospital. And, we can't make trauma centers out of where hospitals don't exist. So we live every night worried that somebody's going to close. And we sure hope that the Rural Health Transformation Project money will help some of this, and we work so closely with our colleagues at DCH, State Office of Rural Health. It's a great synergistic relationship because of all of our rural health initiatives. So we look forward to seeing what comes out of those out of that grant money and how that's going to help Georgia. But we're aware of all the initiatives in that application. But again, we can't make trauma centers where they don't exist. And then the other thing is that if we don't have ambulances to get patients to the hospitals, then we're really sunk. So if you have time, this is worth a peek at. This is out of a group in Maine, this geographic disparities in the provision of ambulance services. They looked at 41 states across the country. 82% of people live in what's defined as an ambulance desert, which is it takes 25 minutes for the ambulance or longer for the ambulance to get to you. And it's interesting, when they looked at states that were mountainous or had rivers or lakes or streams or whatever, that makes for really strange partnerships and mostly prolongs your time to get where you need to go in a hurry. So this is a real problem for us across the country, compounded by the fact that we don't have really good reimbursement rates. A lot of these transports, when you're talking about long distances, they take a long time to complete. You're taking a ambulance out of a county where they're not going to have, and they might not have a 911 backup. So I know Representative Seaball, you know all about this. It's really a conundrum. We're not the only ones dealing with it. Misery loves company, that's for sure. And then I think the other thing that really scares us is the American College of Surgeons works really closely with the military. And there is the thought that sometime in the next 12, 18, 24 months, somewhere around the 38th parallel, there will be a large-scale combat operation. They are very convinced that it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And we are not prepared to handle the influx of casualties that will come to us on the mainland US, which is estimated to be at 1,000 patients a day for the first 90 days. And we've been talking a lot with the American College of Surgeons leadership about this because they have a program called the Regional Medical Operation Command. It's kind of a structure and they have a toolkit for it. And really what is necessary to sort of handle this kind of thing is some sort of load balancing mechanism, right? So we can find out who's got the resources and who's got the availability. We learned during COVID, nobody has availability. If you ask the hospital down the street, how many beds do you have? I'm not even sure anybody could tell you, right? It's a constant state of flux as to what's available, but we're not set up for what is potentially, according to the military, what is coming our way. And we need to really figure this out, and we need to figure it out in a hurry. And then I think I'll end on what we hope. We have a lot of centers in the pipeline for, we have a grant program for the trauma registry. I loved when you asked Chair Taylor about could we link outcomes to cost? Oh my God, you're singing my song. I love that so much. We were back there typing away, like we're getting into their database and seeing if they had some trauma numbers in there, which they did have pelvic fractures. But this is just great news that we have a lot of people willing to, the database is kind of the scary thing. People don't want to start it. And then, oh my gosh, what happens if I don't want it? So we take all that fear away because we want your data anyway. Even if you don't become a trauma center, we'd love a window into what's happening in your facility. So that really helps us. And then I'll wrap it up by saying, we've made great, thanks to the support of you all, the extra 4 million that we got. It made a huge dent. We're growing the system. So we hope to be able to get more folks in the system and maintain the ones that we have. We don't want to grow and risk the folks that are already doing great work. We need to leverage the data as we're doing to make informed decisions. And as I mentioned, that rural environment, it's so unique. The solutions that will work up in North Georgia will not work in South Georgia. It's very different. But we have, our stakeholders are so committed to us, and they're helping us kind of figure out what the solutions look like. And I would say that, I've learned, and I've had the privilege of being able to be on a system assessment panel for the American College of Surgeons. And what I see across the country is that it's really this trauma system development thing. It's a journey. It's not a destination. We're never quite there. You want to be better than you were yesterday, and I think we're doing that year over year. So with that, I'll stop. And if you all have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you for a very thorough report. This is all great information. Does anyone have a question? Yes.
Thank you. That's a great report. It's a lot of information. I would have liked to heard more about the EMS deserts, but what are we doing for EMS staffing, workforce development, and those kind of things? I understand there's been some change in how that's going to be managed. Can you just explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah, we'll direct the funding ourselves to the program. So nothing changes with the scope of work was approved by the committee, and we're working to just seamlessly make keep the grants going, keep the same programs happening.
Are there any plans for any marketing programs for? I guess our number one problem is workforce, just
Yeah.
keeping EMTs, paramedics in the field operations.
Mhm.
So are there any plans what's the plan to
Yeah, did you want to?
move that forward?
I'm gonna let Crystal, because she's got a grand plan, and I think we're gonna have a lot more.
Do have a grand plan.
Good.
So
Initial education programs.
we've been really excited to partner with Natalie with the GIOS program, and we're looking at historical data on how we've supported these initial workforce programs. Where are the students coming from? What are their ages, their previous occupations? And we're looking at that data specifically so that we can target people who historically have come into a pipeline of our initial workforce. So the goal is to continue to collect that data and then work with our RTAC coordinators, our regional assets, the State Office of EMS on how can we promote these classes that we're funding in those communities, and how do we bring more people into the workforce? I think the challenging thing that we're seeing is how do we keep them in the workforce as well? As a long-term educator, we're seeing right now that almost half of our students that graduate from a program don't make a 2-year research cycle. So we get them, but how do we keep them? And then how do we start to develop them as clinicians as well? So we are looking at how we can improve upon that. And with the new funding for our initial education programs, we're going to be able to fund more classes with this structure. And we're also going to do a micro grant program. Sometimes getting a minimum class size hasn't always been obtainable for some of our rural communities. So with this new program, we're going to be able to target smaller communities who might benefit from a smaller class.
That's great. And you going to track the retention rate from the classes that you're paying for?
We certainly are. We're going to track the retention rates and then the national registry success. We're also doing some testing platforms so we can see what it looks like inside of these classrooms so that we can provide support directly to the instructors as well. When we're able to look across a cohort and identify this class underperformed on chest trauma, we want to start to intervene with the instructors as well. Was this a deficiency in support materials that they had? Can we provide additional support so that we know when these clinicians come out of the programs, they're road ready? That's the goal.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And
I don't see any additional questions, and thank you very much for your presentation.
thank you so much. Appreciate
Right.
it. Thanks to the committee.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone being here today. This has been great information, and I thank everyone for their participation, and we are adjourned.